Hello, my name is Todd Cole. I am a board member of Yellow Brick Place, and it is my honor to read one of my favorite stories by my absolute favorite author and illustrator, Patricia Polacco. And this book is called The Lemonade Club. It involves a teacher who has a basket of lemons on her desk. And it also involves two girls in her class that will wear a yellow dress at the end of the story, and they will also be holding a bouquet of flowers that are filled with yellow flowers as well. The story I want to read is The Lemonade Club by Patricia Polacco. Be listening to see what you think the theme of the story is. The Lemonade Club by Patricia Polacco. Tracy and Marilyn were best friends. They were inseparable at school and almost always went to each other's houses after school. Both of them were in Miss Wichelman's 5th grade class. How they loved Miss Wichelman. Everyone in the class did. Miss Wichelman made her classroom seem almost like home. She put a lamp on her desk, and she framed almost everyone's drawings and hung them on the walls. She had a rug right in the front of the room next to her desk where she would read to the class from a big old rocking chair. And there was a class guinea pig, Pinky, who squeaked whenever anyone walked by him. What everyone liked most about Miss Wichelman is that she made every child in the classroom believe that he or she could be anything they wanted to be. If you dream it, you can be it. Marilyn wanted to be a pianist. She took lessons every week, and she had a grand piano in her living room. Tracy loved to hear her practice. Tracy didn't know what she wanted to be, really. She did know that it made her feel warm inside whenever she was helping someone. Almost every day, just as the last bell was about to ring, Miss Wichelman would point to a basket of fresh lemons that she always kept on her desk and say, "If life hands you a lemon or two today, and you all know how sour lemons are," everyone would make a face. "Just add water and sugar, and what will you have?" Then she'd pause, and the whole class would call out, "Lemonade!" Tracy and Marilyn stayed after school one afternoon to help Miss Wichelman put up the career day posters. Miss Wichelman pinned up a picture of a doctor. "Once I thought I'd be a doctor. Why, I even completed my pre-med courses, but I discovered being a teacher was just as important to me. After all, doctors help your bodies grow up healthy and strong. Well, teachers help your minds grow wise and full of ideas," Miss Wichelman said thoughtfully. Soon after, as Tracy and Marilyn were walking home, they heard voices behind them. "Waddle, waddle, waddle," one of the older girls sneered. "Fatty, fatty, 2x4, couldn't get through the classroom door," the other chimed in. "Don't listen to them," Tracy said as she pulled Marilyn along a little faster. The older girls hissed and whispered mean secrets, then laughed as loud as they could. Finally, those mean girls turned down another street. "I would do just about anything to be thin," Marilyn cried. Tracy put her arm around Marilyn's shoulder. They didn't say much more for the rest of the way home. As weeks passed, school went on as usual, except Tracy noticed that Marilyn was losing weight. She was looking great. Even the mean girls didn't tease her anymore. Then one Wednesday, as the girls were planting flowers in Marilyn's front garden, Marilyn collapsed in a heap on the grass. I can't breathe, she gasped. I'm so tired and I don't even think I can get up. You haven't gone on one of those awful diets, have you, Marilyn? Because it isn't good for kids to starve themselves or to go on diets. That's just it, Marilyn answered. I've lost all this weight without even trying. Tracy looked worried. It just melted off. But I feel so tired. And I'm always tired, Marilyn said weakly. I'm getting your mom. Tracy knew something was very wrong. Marilyn didn't come back to school. From that day on, Tracy knew why. Marilyn's mom came over the night before, crying, and told her mom everything. Then the very next day, Miss Witchelman had a terrible announcement to make to the class. About Marilyn, Miss Witchelman started. She looked so grim that everyone in the room knew that this was something very serious. Marilyn's family had asked me to inform all of you that Marilyn has cancer, leukemia. Everyone in the room gasped. Some of the kids cried. Tracy just looked at the floor and fought back her own tears. Miss Witchelman quickly added, but there is a great deal of hope. Marilyn will undergo a series of treatments called chemotherapy. This treatment will eventually kill all of the cancer cells in her body, but it will sometimes make her sick while she's fighting the cancer. The whole class just sat and stared for a time. Is she ever coming back to school? Danny Bridges called out. Yes, in a few weeks she will return, but I warn you, she will look quite different. These treatments will make her lose all of her hair. She will probably wear a wig or a scarf, but she won't have any hair, Miss Witchelman said softly. And there may be times that she will feel sick and very tired. Miss Witchelman suddenly lost all of the color in her face, and she quietly sat down. But, Miss Witchelman, people die when they get cancer, don't they? One of the children blurted out. Miss Witchelman stared out the window for a moment, then collected herself. There is no doubt that some do not survive. Our Marilyn most certainly will, but she'll need all of us to help her through this. Tracy stared at the basket of lemons and thought to herself that no matter how much sugar we added, there wasn't going to be lemonade this time. As days passed, Tracy and Miss Witchelman were almost permanent fixtures at Marilyn's house. One day, shortly after the chemo began, Tracy walked in while Marilyn was brushing her hair. Then she's staring at her hairbrush. It was full of strands and clumps of her beautiful hair. My hair, it's falling out, Marilyn cried as she pulled the hair from her brush and tried to put it back on her head. I even made a wish on a star last night that I wouldn't lose my hair, Marilyn sobbed. From that day on, some days were good and some weren't for Marilyn. One day, Miss Witchelman came for a visit. Tracy was already there. It was one of Marilyn's not-so-good days. She had just come from the hospital, and her arms were bruised from all the pokes that she got that day. She was so weak she could hardly sit up in bed. Nothing Tracy and Miss Witchelman did seemed to cheer her up. Look, Marilyn, Miss Witchelman brought you a CD of a piano concerto to listen to. Mozart! It's your favorite composer. Music. I don't care about music. I'm never going to be able to play the piano again with these sore arms. I'm so sick of doctors and hospitals and needles. Oh, Marilyn, please smile. Smile just for me, Tracy pleaded. Marilyn cried even more. Smile? How can I smile? I feel so sick. No one understands how bad I feel. No one. Then she buried her head in her pillow. Miss Witchelman held Marilyn in her arms. Oh, sweet pea, I think I do. I think I know exactly how you feel, Miss Witchelman said softly. Then Miss Witchelman sat back and held Marilyn's face in her hands. Marilyn, you just have to get well so you can come to my wedding. Miss Witchelman beamed. Your wedding! Marilyn and Tracy both called out. When did you get engaged, and to who? Marilyn smiled broadly for the first time in weeks. His name is Warren, and girls, this will have to be our secret for a while. But I want you both to be there. I want you both in yellow dresses. Lemon yellow, as bright as sunshine. We're going to make lemonade out of sour, bitter, old lemons, aren't we? Miss Witchelman whispered. But what if I'm still bald? What then? Marilyn asked. Well, so what? What if you are? You'll still be one of the most beautiful girls there, Miss Witchelman reassured her. It was Monday morning. Miss Witchelman and Tracy and the whole class had a huge surprise for Marilyn's return to school. It had been planned that Marilyn be brought to class just after the starting bell so the kids could get their surprise ready. As Marilyn walked down the hall, she was gripping her mother's hand. She had on her best scarf. Tracy opened the door and greeted her. The whole class stood up, and they were all wearing funny hats. As Marilyn entered, everyone cheered and clapped. There was a big sheet cake on Miss Witchelman's desk. Tracy took Marilyn's hand. Welcome back, Marilyn, she called out. Then she pulled off her funny hat. Everyone in the class did. Everyone was bald. They had all shaved their heads. Marilyn's mother caught her breath and clapped her hand over her mouth. Marilyn walked up and down each aisle, looking intently into the face of each of her classmates. When she paused and passed the last desk, she lowered her eyes and slowly pulled off her own scarf and held it in her hands. She felt a warm hand softly caress her hairless head. It was Miss Witchelman. Then everyone gasped. Look! Miss Witchelman slowly pulled off her own brightly colored scarf. She, too, had no hair. Then there was a loud cheer. The music was turned on, ice cream and cake dished out, and the celebration began. But Miss Witchelman seemed distracted. She didn't seem as cheerful as usual. With each treatment, the doctor said Marilyn's cancer was disappearing. Marilyn finally completed her last round of chemo, and her hair started growing back right away. It was fuzzy and orange at first, but soon it looked just like it had before, except it was curly and shorter. She and Tracy met after school under the shady elm with Miss Witchelman every week. They had become very close. They called themselves the Lemonade Club. Miss Witchelman read poems. Sometimes she cried. She said it was because the words were so beautiful. They talked about everything, and of course, they loved hearing about plans for Miss Witchelman's wedding. Soon the entire class returned to a normal routine. Everyone's hair was growing back, but one day, Bernie Carlisle called out, "Hey, Miss Witchelman, how come you're still wearing your scarf? Ain't you got no hair under there?" Although Miss Witchelman knew he was kidding, she didn't laugh. She tugged at her scarf and looked out the window. Something seemed wrong. Tracy passed a note to Miss Witchelman and that read, "Emergency meeting of the Lemonade Club today, after school, under the elm." Later that day, Tracy and Marilyn sat under the shade of the elm tree. It was Marilyn who spoke up. "You have it too, don't you, Miss Witchelman? For real. That's why you said you knew exactly how I felt." Miss Witchelman couldn't seem to speak, and when she finally did, her eyes filled with tears. "I have breast cancer, girls," she said, almost in a whisper. "So you're going to fight this, aren't you?" Marilyn demanded. "Yes, I'm almost finished with chemo," Miss Witchelman said, as her voice trailed off. "Will that get rid of it?" Tracy asked. "No, I will have to have surgery eventually." "Surgery? I didn't have surgery," Marilyn said. "Well, you had cancer in a very different way than I do. So you're going to be flat-chested like us, right?" Tracy chirped. "Way to go, Miss Witchelman," she added, giving a thumbs up. "Fashion models are flat-chested, and they are considered to be the most beautiful women on earth," Marilyn chimed in. "Except for brides," said Tracy, and they all laughed. Miss Witchelman steamed deep in thought. "I don't know what I would do without you two," Miss Witchelman sighed as she laid back on the grass and looked up at the clouds. "Both of you have taught me so much and affected my life. Because of you, I have thought again about being a doctor. I applied to Stanford Medical School, and I wanted to help children just like you, Marilyn. But since I started the treatments, I think I have lost my courage." Miss Witchelman's voice drifted off. "Hey," Marilyn bellowed, "you aren't going to let something like cancer stomp on your dreams, are you?" "You are always teaching us to keep our dreams no matter what," Tracy added. "If you can dream it, you can be it," the three of them said together. "You'll make a wonderful doctor," Tracy whispered, "and Warren loves you. What more could you want?" Marilyn said. Miss Witchelman took a lemon out of her basket. "Well then, girls, to the Lemonade Club," she said triumphantly. "To the Lemonade Club," Tracy and Marilyn echoed. It was an especially sunny day. People were gathered in the church. Even though it had been 5 years since they had been Miss Witchelman's students, almost the whole class from then was sitting together. The music was playing softly. It was one of Miss Witchelman's favorite hymns. The flowers were so beautiful, everyone there was thinking about Miss Witchelman. And suddenly the congregation sprang to their feet. The music boomed, a joyous trumpet volunteer. And there, standing in the lemon yellow gowns, were Tracy and Marilyn. They beamed as they marched down the aisle to join the groom at the front of the church. Then everyone turned and looked as Cynthia Witchelman appeared. Tracy and Marilyn were right. She was a beautiful bride. She glowed as she floated like a cloud down the aisle. Dr. Cynthia Witchelman became the wife of Dr. Warren Gish on this glorious day, and they were all there together to celebrate it. A sweet lemonade, indeed. This is a true story that happened to Patricia Polacco's daughter named Tracy and her best friend, Marilyn, and their teacher, Miss Witchelman, known as Dr. Cynthia Gish, and they still keep in touch many years later. What I want to share with you is that I have something in common with Mrs. Cynthia Gish and with Marilyn. I had cancer too, and I made lemonade, because you can see I am here. After 5 years, I am cancer-free. So you don't always lose the battle of cancer. And our board and our organization, the Yellow Brick Place, is there to be with you during your journey as a family that's going on a walk with cancer. Thanks for listening.